After years in exile, being born into a family cursed with backstabbing and self indulgent hedonism, the throne of Egypt is finally yours. But there's a catch. See, your co regent and husband is your 11-year-old brother. And despite his young age, he has a terrifyingly powerful support group that does not want you in the picture. I am your host, Mr. Phan, and today, Queen Cleopatra finally steps into the limelight as the Queen of Egypt. Now, credit where credit is due. Cleopatra did try ruling equally with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, at the beginning of their reign. But remember, Cleopatra was an ambitious and a woman of surpassing beauty, as described by Roman historian Diocrasus. So, obviously, a person of this kind of caliber can only handle incompetence from their partner for so long. And Cleopatra was able to harness the strength and power found only in embracing femininity. See, in historian Plutarch's writings, Cleopatra was a woman with an irresistible charm, with a sweet, soft voice, and a very persuasive, stimulating presence. It's these skills that allowed her to charm the mighty dictator Julius Caesar and the proud Mark Antony. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Given these personal personality traits, it was inevitable for Cleopatra to try and assume sole authority over Egypt. See, by 51 BC, Cleopatra started issuing official orders and policies, state policies, on her own authority, intentionally leaving out Ptolemy's names. She also begins minting coins in just her own image, intentionally sabotaging any attempts for Ptolemy's image to be minted. As her father before her, Cleopatra also started portraying herself as the Egyptian goddess Isis to the Egyptian population and became heavily involved with the religious practices, such as installing a new sacred bull in Thebes. Now, here is a fan fact for you. Cleopatra was the only member of the Ptolemaic line to intentionally and actually learn the Egyptian language. That's right, every ruler before her in the Ptolemaic line only spoke Greek. They refused to speak the Egyptian language. Kind of elitist, but also a very, very smart move for Cleopatra to win public support. However, I did mention strong opposition at the beginning of this video. See, Ptolemy XIII, given how young he was when he started ruling, either 11 or 12 years old, he had an appointed eunuch as his regent, his advisor Pothinus. He also had the support of General Achillas, not Achilles, and the Gabiniani, the powerful Roman mercenary force left behind to help their father, Ptolemy XII, maintain his power after returning from exile. And I guess great minds, at least great political minds, must think alike, because Pothinus also wanted Ptolemy to be the sole ruler of Egypt. After all, why co-rule when one monarch is enough? Especially when said monarch is a young and highly impressionable 12-year-old boy that hangs on your every word. So, in less than a year, Ptolemy's faction gained the upper hand, threatening Cleopatra's life. In 50 BC, Cleopatra was forced to flee Alexandria again to Roman Syria to rebuild her forces. Within 2 years, a full civil war between Cleopatra and her now 14-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII, was in full effect, and she was not winning. But, as fate would have it, she need only wait and position herself for the perfect opportunity. You see, during this Ptolemaic civil war, there was a larger conflict taking place all over the Mediterranean region. Now, quick recap. Remember, during this era of history, the Roman Republic was in full swing and full control of the Mediterranean region. Egypt, at this point in history, was a vassal state of the Roman Republic, and the Roman Republic was fully controlled by the first triumvirate made up of the populist Julius Caesar, the famous general Pompey the Great, and the extremely wealthy Marcus Crassus. A delicate balance of power was kept between these three aspiring warriors. Then Marcus Crassus led a failed campaign to take Parthia. It's basically the region adjacent to Jordan. It's the Middle Eastern region, uh, east of Israel, and he died. Now there were two powerful men, and even though they were great friends, tensions arose between the two. A lot of measuring contests started forming, and eventually civil war broke out. Now today known as Caesar's Civil War. Probably would have been known as Pompey's Civil War if the other person won. Now, this war continued until Pompey met a decisive defeat at a battle of Pharsalus on August 9th of 48 BC. With no other option, Pompey decided to sail south to Egypt in hopes of recouping his forces and continuing his war against Julius Caesar from Africa. Now, if you kept up with the previous videos of this section, all links in the description down below, you would know that both Cleopatra and Ptolemy XIII owed their current status to Pompey. After all, Pompey was the man who helped their father, Ptolemy XII, retake the throne of Egypt after his forced exile by Berenice IV and their potential mother, Cleopatra V. With that in mind, Egypt should be the best spot for Pompey. After all, during this war with Caesar, both Cleopatra and Ptolemy had sent him supplies and even manpower to aid his efforts. Some of the Gabiniani were actually ordered to help Pompey's war against Julius Caesar. Unfortunately, Ptolemy and Pothinus had other plans. See, Pompey the Great was greeted in Pelusium, Egypt, by the Gabiniani officer Lucius Septimus, where he was betrayed and stabbed to death by his old friend. His head was removed and served on a platter to Julius Caesar while his body was cremated. Now, I should mention at this point in time, Julius Caesar was hot on the trail following Pompey. So when he arrived in Alexandria and he was greeted with his old friend and rival's head, he was furious. And here's some reasons why I believe Julius Caesar was actually upset at the death of his friend. One, Julius Caesar was disgusted by how Ptolemy betrayed Pompey, a horrible, dishonorable act, especially given how much Ptolemy owed to Pompey. Two, but Pompey was killed by the leader of a vassal state. In simple layman's terms, he was killed by an inferior nation. Remember, elitism is something that has always existed in our history, still exists today. Three, Pompey's body was desecrated. He deserved an honorable send off that normally meant the body was washed and cleaned, coins were placed on the head. I know this is a Greek tradition, but remember, Romans are they're basically Greeks and that did their own thing. Um, Instead, his head was cut off and his body was cremated. And finally, 4, every single ally of Pompey was given clemency by Julius Caesar. Every single battle that Julius Caesar won, where he captured a loyal supporter of Pompey, was allowed to return back to Rome with no repercussions. From this, you can safely say Caesar just wanted to force Pompey to admit defeat and become his subordinate. As I mentioned several times in this video, they were close friends. Now, you can speculate down in the comments what other reasons why Julius Caesar would be irritated at the death and horrible betrayal of his friend Pompey. But Ptolemy's mistake was Cleopatra's opportunity. See, and this is kind of a cool story actually. Cleopatra heard that Julius Caesar had a thing for having affairs with royal women, women of prestigious bloodlines. So instead of sending a messenger to greet Julius Caesar, she smuggled herself into Alexandria in either a bed sack, a linen cloth, or a carpet. There's multiple different accounts. Once inside, she dressed herself attractively and met with Caesar in private, charming him with her oratory skills and her feminine charms. Her brother Ptolemy was completely unaware that she was in the palace at this moment. Now, if you made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you'll be made aware when the next video drops. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the support you guys are giving me. Have a wonderful day.